Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
A while back, I lived in a flat I rented from a friend. She had this room next to the bedroom she kept locked at all times and strictly forbade me from entering. She didn't leave a key for the room when she went to the US, and I wasn't really that interested about the room, so I hardly cared. She had a hallway which connected the living room, toilet, kitchen, and bedroom. The locked door was in the living room, so that was not connected to the hall. In the hall was a crystal lamp and a mirror. Reasons for mentioning this will be provided. It all started one night. I was sitting in the living room when I felt watched. This wasn't the first time ever. Usually it's just imagination that you discard and just continue doing what it was you were doing, but this time the feeling didn't go away. The weird thing is, it felt as if the source of the... it's here again. My desk lamp just lit up all by itself. The things I describe are pretty much still ongoing. I'm kind of used to them by now, even if I just had a heart attack. I guess it doesn't like me asking for help getting rid of it. Back to the story. Anyhow, it felt as if something from the doorway to the locked room was watching me. It creeped me out so much I finally had to leave, but I had to pass the damn door, and for the first time since childhood I was scared over something I couldn't see. So I went to the kitchen and the feeling just kept at it. I looked out into the hallway, into the mirror which due to the angle caught the damn door. So I closed the door to the kitchen and the feeling was gone. I was so creeped out I couldn't leave the kitchen for an hour. Anyway, I stayed in the kitchen, went out, everything was back to normal, and I just sighed with relief and decided I had just let my imagination get the better of me. So life went on, pretty much without incident, until one day a few weeks later when I was sitting in the kitchen by my laptop playing Call of Duty when I heard rasping behind me. I turned to watch but couldn't find the cause. Damned rats, I figured, by now almost having forgotten the incident with the door. After a while I heard the scraping again. Damn rats. A while later again the scraping. So that's it, I reckon. Stand up and turn around to kick the sink. Discover that the knives I had on the bench behind me was all lined up perfectly, the points at me. This, I think, is when I realized something really scary was going on. But this time I wasn't even scared. I guess I was shocked or something. I just put the knives back where they belonged, in the dishes. It was later I realized what had just happened. But again, things went calm. Nothing happened for some time, and I again forgot about it. Until one night, without warning, I woke up. Oh shit, there is someone in my room. I look around to see, but I can't move my head. I was paralyzed, and then the fear hit me. Brain-wrecking panic, the likes I had never felt before. I tried to scream, fight, run, just explode into action, but nothing happened. And then I heard words in my ears. Strange words. Not garbled, not incoherent. I understood everything, but I had no idea what they said, as if the memory of the words had been wiped at the same time I heard them, only leaving the afterimage of the words in my memory. I couldn't recite them 5 seconds after that and can't recite them now. If I was scared before, it was nothing like after hearing the words. I think I blacked out for a second. Then the whispered words just went louder and louder until I thought my ears would break, but the sound wasn't in my ears. It was in my mind. Suddenly I sat straight up, opened my mouth and started howling. I had no control of it. It was as if I was watching through the windows. I just howled more than I thought possible with only one set of lunges, and then just slumped back into my bed and fell asleep. The next day I felt as if I had slept a year. At first I was confused, daylight, and then I remembered what had happened, and I felt sick, physically ill. I had to go to the toilet and throw up. That's when I decided to call in a medium. I knew a medium from childhood. She was the mother of one of my closest friends, and she always said I should be careful never to meddle with anything supernatural. She said it was nothing for me and warned me against ever trying any ghost board things. I always thought that was weird coming from her, but just went with it, since I figured I would never be interested in that stuff anyway. I thought she was just trying to get me into it, using reverse psychology, so I was convinced never to try it, out of spite. I was desperate now, though, and I had heard coins had mystical powers somewhere. No idea where, LOL. So I put up coins over every doorway, making sure they were wedged in between the wood of the frame and the wall so they wouldn't fall out. Anyway, I called up my friend whom I hadn't seen in years, and we set up a meeting at my place. I didn't tell her of the stuff that had been happening because I didn't want her to think I was bonkers or nothing. So she came over, and as we were sitting in the kitchen, talking about old times over the noise of her toddler that was screaming bloody murder the whole duration of our visit. Then she froze and got a weird look on her face for a moment. Then she turned around and looked out in the hallway. I followed her gaze, and as she was staring, one of the coins I had over every doorway in the house just slowly rolled by in a perfect straight line. She looked at me as if I had betrayed her somehow, and took her kid and left, saying she had to go. I picked up the coin and decided it had to have come from the kitchen door frame, and that it had somehow dislodged itself. The coin was still there. Confused, I checked the other doors. The coins were all still there. The weirdest thing I discovered upon inspection was that the letters were turned backwards. I figured it was just a badly made coin, perhaps something I had placed on a shelf or something that had finally slipped over the edge. After that, I had another short relief period. Nothing happened until the day I moved out and was cleaning the flat. I heard scraping on the wall of the locked room while I was cleaning out the bedroom. This time I was pretty much a wreck, jumping at every sound, never going in the living room out of fear of what was behind that locked door. The scraping was really silent and weak. I had to strain my hearing to even distinguish the sound from the background noise of a flat in the middle of a city. As I was listening, the scraping turned into a sharp bang against the wall, causing me to almost fall backwards into the wall. After that, I quickly cleaned out the rest of my stuff and left, happy to be rid of the place, at the time thinking it was a local thing. But the thing followed me. The next flat I moved into, everything was calm to start with. Then things started happening again. The paralysis, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. Weird stuff happening, so I went on /x/ and asked for help. I got a few suggestions, iron being one, but it didn't help. Neither did salt. Not even the crucifix helped me. Nothing. Not the Bible, not suggested by /x/. Not anything at all. And it is still happening to this very day. Like I said before, the lamp on my desk just went on by itself.
Why didn't you just open the door in the first place?
2 reasons. First, my friend told me she had private stuff in there she didn't want me to poke around in, and I respected her wishes. Secondly, I am not a paranormal dude. I was scared of that door. Staying near it for too long was out of the question, opening it even more so.
Backstory. At my girlfriend's Summerhouse in the middle of nowhere. Not a lot of people around. Nothing weird ever happened before. That night, we went to an old, weird, abandoned house nearby, peeking through windows trying to get in. One building had boarded windows, and the place was creepy. We try to get in when we hear a loud thud from inside the boarded house. Left the place in a hurry, walked back joking about spirits and murderers who stay there and are gonna follow us now. Little did we know. Last week, staying at girlfriend's Summerhouse with her mom and sis. It's an old wooden house. We sleep in our own room upstairs. All the doors are unlocked 'cause in the middle of nowhere. Wake up in the middle of the night to our room door opening. It makes a distinct sound when opened. You need to unlatch it. Pitch black in the opening. Wasn't open very much. I feel someone looking at me from the opening. The door closes really slowly. Makes absolutely no sound at all. No footsteps or any other sounds going away from the door. And in that house you can hear every step. Someone standing behind it. Stay still and listen for what feels like forever. Start f***ing hard, not saying anything because I don't want to alarm my girlfriend. 5 minutes later, I start hearing weird little sounds all over, like someone slowly moving around the house. Definitely not sleeping anytime soon. The sounds go on for 30 to 60 minutes. My girlfriend wakes up too. Agrees it's really strange and creepy. There's no reason anyone would come to our room in the middle of the night, hear the sounds too. In the morning we asked about it. No one had been up that night. Girlfriend's sister heard the sounds too, and we heard girlfriend's mom coughing in her room at the time of all the creepiness. MFW, it was a ghost. MFW, it was aliens. MFW, there was a stranger in our house watching us sleep. MFW, it was the murderer's spirit from the abandoned house paying us a visit.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff. I remember being deathly afraid of a specific corner of the basement. It was divided in two halves with a wall. The right part was where the stairs leading up were. There was a bathroom there, and my father had a workroom there too. It was mostly one huge living room, though. The left part was accessed through a door. There was the room where we kept the PC, which my mom also used as a sort of office, and one massive room which was pretty much used as a place to put everything which didn't fit anywhere else in the house. The sewing machine, the huge freezer, the second fridge, etc. When I was a kid, the toys were kept there. My father eventually built a bedroom at the end of it. The corner which I was afraid of was at the very end of that left portion of the basement, where my father would eventually build a bedroom. Whenever I left the basement, I could swear I saw dark shapes coming from there. When I played late on the PC, if I looked out the door into the dark, I always got freaked out because it always seemed like there was movement there. I remember that in that very spot, I used to have this big-ass wooden box where my toys were stuffed. I used to have nightmares as a kid, where I would go to the basement stairs, then something would grab me and pull me towards the toy box, super fast. The toy box would open as I got close. I would get pulled in, and everything would go dark, and I'd wake up screaming then. At least once, I went to bed and woke up in the toy box in the morning. Anyway, a few years later, I was talking to my mom about how I was always scared of the basement, and she told me, "No, it started when you were 3. One night, there was a huge booming sound, and in the morning, the foundation was cracked in a corner of the basement. You were scared of the basement afterwards." I asked her if the crack had been where my toy box was, and she answered, "Yes. How do you remember that?" Some more weird stuff. Every time I would leave the basement, when I turned off the lights and went up the stairs, I could see shadows moving in the other half of the basement. At least one incident where I saw a shadow person in the kitchen. Mom swears she saw the ghost of the previous owner's wife just before she electrocuted herself, and would have died if my older brother hadn't been there to knock her off the outlet. Constant scratching from the closet below the stairs. Both dogs we had while we lived there refused to go downstairs with us after dark.
Backstory. My great-grandfather was a German soldier who fought in World War I and World War II and died in the Battle of Stalingrad. My family refuses to answer me most of my questions about him, and I can understand their reasons. But I'm too curious, and I already knew some rumors that my family kept some things long, waiting to be forgotten with them. Coincidence or not, my house has a basement which I'm not allowed to enter by my father's orders. Be me 2 years ago at age 17. Couldn't control my curiosity anymore, had to enter the basement and check for myself what was inside there. Father usually enters the basement on weekends. Finally discovers where my father hides the key after weeks of placing hidden cameras on strategic spots. It was actually inside his computer case. Then comes the day when I'm alone in my house. Get the key and open the basement. This is huge .jpg. An infinite amount of boxes with every kind of thing inside. Deeper in the basement, I came across a wooden box with an iron cross carved on it. I couldn't believe it when I saw that thing right before my eyes. Opened it carefully, because I didn't want to move it or something that would make my father think somebody else was down there. There were some letters and some bullets, but the first thing that came to my interest was a ragged steel helmet. Worst decision of my life when I decided to prove it. As soon as I placed it on my head, I heard a loud scream, a desperate one, like if someone was in the middle of a bombardment, throw the helm on the floor and start to nope as fast as I could out of there. I don't know how I got the courage to get back there and started placing everything back in the box, exactly like they were before. Nope out of there a second time and lock that door for good. Hide the key back inside the computer case. Actually glad my father never discovered I was down there. Occasionally have nightmares related to war, but thankfully nothing such as that loud scream.
I live in the middle of nowhere. My best friend is over for the day and most likely night. Giant forest on a giant hill behind a giant cornfield behind my house with ATV trails and nothingness. Bored with nothing better to do, we go exploring. There aren't any no trespassing signs, so we figured we were safe to venture as we pleased. About an hour into the woods, we find a small path. Not a paved one, but one that looks like it's used as a shortcut. Decide to see where it leads. After a few minutes of walking through dense trees and tall grass, we found a small log cabin. What the hell, didn't know anyone had anything like this set up all the way up here. The nearest ATV trail was a half-hour away. Friend is feeling brave, I'm not, but peer pressure gets the best of me. We walked forward to investigate the small cabin. By now we notice it's really old, and there's not a single window on it. Just a door. It's about the size of your average bedroom. All of the sudden we hear a loud grunt. Friend and I look at each other with pupils larger than Gaben's nipples. Start to run back towards where we came from when an old man opens the door to the cabin with force. Don't look back, but can hear him chasing us. After like 5 minutes of running through the dense forest, we don't hear anything else behind us, so we headed back toward my house, scared as hell. Brush it off as some mad, drunk hunter. After a few hours of Vidya, friend and I walked outside and noticed a path in the cornfield that we didn't make.
Live on a street called Haven. It's in a city, but the location is pretty remote. Houses with horses, chickens, dirt roads and such. Take dogs for a walk frequently. Always take a different route and explore the dirt roads. Across a major street, there is a house that isn't completely finished being built. It's massive, looks about 3 stories. Roof isn't complete, just boards. Outside walls are just grey stucco. Rent a fence around a large property. Chalk it up to bad economy. Think nothing of it. Walking by just as the sun is setting. 3 or 4 cars parked outside. Massive amount of feral cats living on the lot. Notice that on either side of the door is a large tile with some picture of the Virgin Mary. Not really that creepy, but I always thought vampires or some other spooky being lived there. I've kind of got a story that combines with this one I'll add on. Picture related. I went on Google Maps and found the house. Looks like someone else owns it now and has started work on it again. Really late at night, driving down Haven to a really spooky lot of about 4 abandoned houses trying to get spooked with some friends. Stop in front of the house, roll down the windows and shut off the car. Get kinda spooked, but not really. Continue driving down Haven, which is a fairly small 2-lane street. Get to the end and turn around. Going about 45, my friend slams on the brakes. Dead white cat in the middle of the road that we did not see driving the other way. Looks fresh. Friend floors it and goes around the cat. I'm freaking out. They drop me off at my house and leave. I was always finding dead cats in that neighborhood. Right outside of one of those abandoned houses, I found one that was pretty mummified and had been there forever. Pick related, after a few months, they tore down the abandoned houses and fenced the place up. Last one I can think of from this street. Inside watching some TV at about 10 p.m. Dogs outside barking. I think it's nothing and continue watching TV. Dad comes inside and tells me he just saw something that looked like a huge dog wolf thing, walking on hind legs behind the house in a dirt lot. Go outside and look over the fence, but it's too dark to see anything. Get goosebumps and hair stands on end. Go inside and lock all doors. Dogs continue to be on edge all night. I don't know what it was that my dad saw, but he's not one to lie about things like that.
My grandmother was always weird and into the paranormal. She actually worked as a psychic for a while. Anyway, my brother and I would go over to her place once a week or so to mow her lawn, and we noticed she had started packing stuff into boxes, so we asked her what she was doing. She looked at us kind of sadly and said she wasn't going to be living here anymore. We asked if her landlord was trying to make her leave. He was an ass. It wouldn't have been the first time, but she said no, but she wouldn't tell us why she was leaving. We asked if she had a place to stay, and she smiled and said she did, so we cut her lawn and went home. We told our mom about it, and she got worried, but my grandma kept being evasive, but assured everyone she had a very nice place waiting for her. Later that week, my mom got a call from my uncle that she had died. She had a heart attack. We went to her house and found that she had finished packing all her things into boxes, but instead of labels like books or music, things were labeled Susan or Michael. Inside each box was a letter and a number of items she wanted that person to have. Now, there are a number of reasonable explanations for this. It's possible she could feel her heart messing up, and instead of going to a doctor about it, just thought, well, this is it then. It's possible it was suicide, that she took something to induce the heart attack, though the coroner didn't find anything like that. If it was anyone other than my grandma, I'd just assume it was one of those things and move on. But coupled with her history of paranormal stuff, it seems a bit extra weird.
I have this tiny little anvil which was my grandfather's. His house was haunted. Mother and aunts growing up there say so. After I and my family lived there for like 2 years while my whole family has had experiences. That being said, when my grandfather died, all I wanted was his tiny anvil we used to smash pennies on and make tiny horseshoes out of nails within his garage. He was a real do-it-yourself, Depression era, World War II Marine super grandpa. But, like I mentioned, his house was haunted. He dies and I get the anvil for fond memories. I place it up on a shelf in my apartment and kind of forget about it for a while. One night, pow! A huge thud wakes me and my wife up. I get the crowbar from under the bed and search the place. Only thing out of place? A tiny anvil. It fell off the shelf. This happened 3 more times in about as many months until I started checking it regularly. I would put the anvil further back on the shelf, and in about a month's time it would be about an inch from the edge of the shelf. My wife tried to debunk it as the doors slamming from neighboring apartments, or the shelf wasn't level. But nothing else moved or fell from the shelves, just that. Not too spooky, but luckily not too much spooky has followed me. I'll post some stories about his house and the shenanigans that followed us to my parents' home and a little bit of bull in our apartment in a bit, because /X/ always wants more. Boss is out of the office, so I'll tell you some more about that house. Long story short, my parents lost their asses and we had to sell our house to have enough money to make it. We moved into my grandfather's house since my grandmother had died recently for my mom to help take care of him and whatnot, plus having his grandkids there made him happy. My sister and I shared a room, Mom's old room, parents had one of her sister's old rooms, Grandpa had his room, and the last room was the antique room. Grandma loved antiques. One night there is a banging noise in our room, like moving furniture sounds. As I'm waking up from the noise, my sister jumps onto my bed terrified, saying something is kicking her in her bed. No shit. The bed is shaking, so we do what little kids do. We scream for our parents. Dad storms in, pissed we're jumping around and screaming. He opens the door and as soon as he flicks the switch, the bed stops. Confused, he looked at us, who were not in any bed jumping kind of position, cowering in the corner. We explain what happened and in typical dad fashion he checks under the bed. See Anon and Sister Anon, nothing under the He stopped mid-sentence, bolted upright, gathered us kids and we all slept in my parents' room. Later, after we moved out, he tells us that while he was looking under the bed, he felt what he described as a cold, wet sheet dragged across his back and legs. We still don't know what it was. And another. We're finally moved into our brand new home now. Brand new as in just build, first owners. It's been a few years since anything really weird has happened. Everything seems good. We're having a family night and watching a movie when we all turn and look at the landing halfway up the stairs. There is a man peeking at us through the posts, hands on top of the railing and kneeling behind it. We're all too dumbstruck to move and we watch him stand and calmly walk upstairs. Suddenly, Dad and I get into action mode. I grab fire poker, he gets some other tool good for leg breaking, and we charge upstairs. All of the bedroom and bathroom doors are open. We look in every room, closet, cabinets under sinks. Nothing. We notice that all the windows are shut and locked, all of the screens are in place. What the hell did we just see?
About 3 or 4 years ago. Sleeping in my bed, suddenly I wake up, glance over at the digital clock. It's 3 a.m. or sometime around then. As I'm still looking at the clock, the minutes start to go by like seconds. This is very startling, so I reach over to turn on my bedside light, while keeping my eye on the clock. As soon as I flip the switch on the light, there's a loud bump in my closet. And at the same time, the clock stops ticking off time so fast. Feel a bit braver now with the light in the room. So I go check out what's up in the closet. The hatch that leads to my attic located in my closet is askew. Nope, out of the closet. Keep my lights on all night. Don't sleep till daylight. When I check my phone for time in the morning, it matches up with what the digital clock says. I still don't know what the hell was going on that night. By the way, I've posted these occurrences once or twice before, but not on /x/. A few weeks after the last incident. Sleeping in my bed again, pretty much forgot about the prior incident. Suddenly woken up by my name whispered in my ear. Opened my eyes. An orb of black smoke swirling around about 3 feet in diameter is a foot away from my face. My heart drops. Pure adrenaline shoots through my body. Reach for the light switch again. The second I turn it on, the smoke is gone. Maybe 2 or 3 seconds elapsed from the point of hearing my name whispered and seeing it disappear. Look at the clock. It's 3:33 a.m. Same drill as before. Lights on all night, no sleep until daylight. Don't know why, but this always happens at 3:33 or close to then. Next story is one my friend also experienced, so I know I'm not schizophrenic. Be hanging out at my friend's house all night, playing video games. We notice how late it is, so he decides to drive me home. Turn the corner to my street. My house is maybe half a mile down, and the last one on the street. While we're approaching my house in the car, I'm looking out the side window from the passenger seat. I suddenly see weird light refractions and bends in the light coming from in front of the car, but only glimpse it out of the corner of my eye. Even seeing as little as I did, I get that familiar pit of despair feeling in my gut. My friend stops the car and says, "Anand, did you see that?" in a shaky voice. I'm like, I saw something, don't know what, but it made me feel like complete shit. He tells me he saw a black figure appear in front of the car's headlights, and it made the headlight beams bounce off of it in weird ways, so it appeared straight up black. Well, that must have been what I was seeing. Kinda glad I didn't see the black figure. It just so happens to be 3:33 a.m. again. We went back to his house, and I spent the night there. The AC upstairs is crapped out. It's the middle of the summer in Phoenix, so me, my brother, and my sister all sleep in the downstairs living room that has working AC. I'm on the couch, they're on sleeping bags on the floor. Wake up in the middle of the night again. The only light is from a street light outside, barely coming through the blinds. Everything's barely visible. Look over and see the silhouette of my little brother standing up on top of his sleeping bag. I say, "James, go back to sleep, it's late." As soon as I say it, he jerks toward me and just stands there, seemingly staring at me. I keep saying, "James, lay down." Still staring. He twitches a few times. The remote for the TV is next to me on the floor. Grab it and turn it on so I can see what's up with my brother. As soon as the TV light flickers on, my brother's silhouette disappears. Look down, he was in his sleeping bag the whole time. Check my phone, of course it's 3:33.
In 2001, I lived in a house that was literally driving me insane. Nothing particularly special about the house. A kind of cheap place that I bought cheap because it was in a less than pristine neighborhood and needed a little cosmetic work. My neighbors were mostly old people slowly being replaced by their crackhead grandkids that clearly inherited their houses just because the families didn't want to deal with them or the house. It didn't matter if I was tired or wide awake. If it was the day or night, or if there were people on the street or quiet outside, there were noises. At first you think it's the character of the place, just a little tapping noise behind you or something that sounds like footsteps right next to you in the kitchen, even though you're alone. I thought maybe I was having issues with my ears, so I went to my doctor. She said it was probably a little exhaustion, and to make sure that I stuck to a regular sleep schedule. Kind of difficult with my hours even then, but I tried. Sometimes I would just be getting ready to leave for work, and midway through changing, it would sound like someone was tapping on my door to be let in, not knocking on the front door, tapping on my bedroom door. I thought, since it always seemed to happen when I was changing my clothes to go to work, maybe I was just standing on loose floorboards and shifting my weight a certain way to cause it. Since it was just me, I swapped the room I was using for storage with my bedroom, and it still happened. I brought in a home inspector. He couldn't find anything wrong. And since the roof was replaced just prior to me moving in, he recommended that I get noise-insulating flooring installed. I did. It didn't help. I was more curious and slightly annoyed than freaked out by the time I hit the 6-month mark. I rented one of the spare rooms in the house to a friend that was leaving her husband, and another room was pretty much my ex-boyfriend but still friend's crash pad when he was in town. So then things started getting creepy. Not like in the movies, blood dripping down the wall creepy. I'm pretty sure I could deal with that, but just subtle and unnerving. I'd walk by a window in the kitchen and feel like someone was looking at me. Look, and there was no one there, and no one could be there because there were some deadly overgrown rose bushes under that window. In the backyard, in broad daylight, sometimes you hear a door slam inside the house, so loud neighbors could hear it, go inside the house and check to see what's going on. Nothing. Go back outside, and from inside, hear another slam. Inside the house, B, my darling ex-boyfriend, but still friend, had heard absolutely nothing, but would ask if I had been knocking on his door. The roomie would come home from work and crash, get up, walk around saying, "Who's there? Is anyone there?" I would ask her, "Is everything all right?" And she would get this look and act all embarrassed and be, "I think I'm hearing things again." So, yeah, I put the house on the market, and after a nice couple made an offer, I told them all about the noises, but they were happy with the price and bought it. Not a very climatic ending, but real life has shitty story arcs.
Be 7 years old. I have a horrible, vivid nightmare of me sitting in my room reading when I suddenly hear my mother and brother scream from her bedroom. In the dream, I run to the room and the door is shut. A pool of blood appears underneath the door and touches my feet. A horrible, tall, dark creature opens the door and starts chasing me around the house. I used to live in a very unusual house where almost all the rooms were connected with 2 entrances. This being chased me for what feels like hours. He mentally controls the locks on doors, and sometimes I have to turn around and run for the other door. At the end of my nightmare, the creature catches up with me and stabs its long, sharp index finger into my lower back. I wake up abruptly and feel a horrible, sharp pain on my lower back. It's nothing like I've ever felt before. The pain throbs and feels like it's a nerve deep inside my spine or something. It's indescribable. I really can't compare it to any other pain. What's unusual is that I feel this exact pain every time I have a nightmare. I never had a dream about this creature again, but as long as it's a nightmare, this horrible, sharp, nerve-ripping pain appears at the exact same spot. It's really weird to think about. It's been happening for 22 years now.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.